Earlier today, USA basketball lost to Lithuania 110-104. I think we've seen the rebounding issue pop up. Outside of that, do you have any big takeaways from the game this morning?
I thought it was a great test for Team USA. I thought Lithuania was going to be the one team that would really be able to see how far they've come. Germany and Spain got them in the lead up as far as testing them. They responded. Montenegro had the idea, but they totally slowed down the pace to the point where once Team USA got stops, it was over. But Lithuania plays with a pace and a tempo that made it difficult. So how are they going to respond in pick and roll? How are they going to be able to score and keep up with that tempo? And I thought Lithuania did a great job on both ends of the floor as far as we've got pick and roll, we've got guards who will shoot the ball, we have bigs who will shoot the ball. And once they got that blend, it was really tough for Team USA. They were comfortable. Because usually when we think of Team USA, it's activity defensively. We're going to turn the ball over. We're going to go score on the other end. This Team USA has turned that down volume-wise. So there's a better base, but you see in this type of game, Lithuania was way more comfortable just running through their sets, running through their offense. And once they got them in rotation, they kept hitting all those threes in the first half. They were able to get movement as well. It was very tough for Team USA to respond early. They got there in the second half, but I think Team USA needed that kind of wake-up call to understand what is ahead of them to finish off this World Cup.
Yeah, I like that. Look, it's been talked about a number of times throughout the last month. They're undersized, right? And they're going to play some bigger teams in the World Cup. And we've seen them be out-rebounded. Lithuania this morning rebounded over half of their own misses. And we saw them go at Austin Reeves. There was a lot of mismatches where they're posting smaller guards. USA tries to switch. Jaren Jackson Jr., again, can't stay out of foul trouble. That's all been talked about a ton. But I think the point you make about pace and multiple actions, that was my takeaway from the game, where I'm watching Team USA play, and it's a lot like, let's be honest, at times it was a lot of hero ball, and they certainly have the talent to play hero ball at times, but it was one-on-one. It was one pick and roll or one dribble handoff and a shot versus Lithuania, multiple actions in a half-court set. They're catching the ball and running through it, getting into the paint, kicking out for threes, getting USA in rotations. They're causing mismatches, getting USA in rotations out of that. There wasn't any of that for USA. So scoring the basketball, even though we shot 53% from the field and 37.9% from three, you think a Team USA team does that, we should win. They could not get stops outside of that stretch in the third quarter. And so to me, it was like a credit to Lithuania in how they played offensively in the half court.
And I think just to kind of bounce off what both of you said, my primary takeaway from what I was able to see today anyway, is that Team USA just doesn't have much of a margin for error. Like, just based on how the roster has been built, there are just certain notes that they have to hit on both ends of the floor. Bouncing off of Steve's points about the defense, like, it's not a super aggressive group in terms of their scheme. There's going to be some drop. It's going to be a lot of switching. You just kind of have to hold serve there. And if you face a Lithuania team that can own the paint and just kind of dictate the terms of engagement the way that they were in this game, Team USA isn't able to get out and run. They aren't able to get out and flow into some of your early offense. So even if you don't have your multiple actions, if you're just catching them on the back heel, they can create an advantage and kind of play out of that. So Team USA didn't feel like until that second half, they weren't really able to play advantage basketball for most of that game. And they have incredible shot makers. Like Anthony Edwards was able to get going, though it didn't feel like a great game from him, even with his point total in this one. And so it just kind of felt rigid. Lithuania did a great job of delivering that initial blow in that first quarter in particular. And Team USA was just kind of reeling from there.
Yeah, we'll get to Anthony Edwards in a second. I thought it was interesting after the game, Steve Kerr said they punched us in the mouth. And I think that's reflected by the rebounding stuff. That's reflected by taking advantage of mismatches. But you watch that first quarter and the sense of urgency wasn't there. The ball movement wasn't there. They looked shell-shocked, actually, at times. And given, to Steve's point, given that Team USA has been tested, both in the run-up and at times in that game against Montenegro in the previous second-round game, I was a little shocked at how they came out and started the game. And it really seemed like Anthony Edwards was the only one, which leads me to something else that I want to talk to you guys about, which is just how difficult it is for some of these guys to play a totally different role. Like we're going to talk more about Anthony Edwards, but Anthony Edwards is primarily a number one guy, right? And primarily has been a number one guy. Sometimes, maybe at times, a number two guy with Cat, right? Certainly this year, I thought he was the number one guy. He hasn't had to change a role. The guys that have had some success, I was thinking about this, some success on this team, like Austin Reeves at times has been really good. Tyrese Halliburton at times has been really good. Josh Hart, Brunson, Mikal Bridges. All these guys have had to shape shift roles in the NBA. So for them, I think it's a little bit easier to then come on a team with a bunch of guys. Your minutes are sporadic, your touches, your role is, but like they understand, because for them to get to this point in their career, to get to this stage and be on Team USA, they had to figure that out in year one, in year two, in year three, in year four, right? That's how these Team USA rosters are built. On the other side of that is Brandon Ingram, who at times has really struggled, although he had a better, first quarter on, he had a better game today in terms of counting stats. But Brandon, I don't think even when he was on the Lakers, I don't think at any point in time he was the third guy. He certainly hasn't been the fifth guy in a starting lineup, maybe the third, but for most of his career, he's been A1 or A2. And I think he's probably had the most difficult challenge. And look, I follow a bunch of people on Pell's Twitter, and he's getting bashed. And this is not to like give him a break or make an excuse for him. I'm just providing a little bit of context for how this roster was built and how some of these guys built their careers. For Josh Hart, give me Josh Hart on any team in the NBA. He will figure out a way to contribute to winning. That's his gift. That's his talent, right? Brandon Ingram is a primary scorer who's now being asked to not be a primary scorer. Of course, it's going to take probably more than 5 games to figure that out.
No, yeah. I think the context there is important. A lot of conversation about Brandon Ingram, but think about it. The time they've been together, and you look at that initial starting lineup with Brandon Ingram, with Anthony Edwards, with Jalen Brunson, you noticed hesitancy. You noticed thinking. It looked like Jalen Brunson wanted to attack and then, okay, let me swing it. Brandon Ingram would catch. Do I hold? Do I shoot? Do I drive? Do I swing? Those are things that it's tough to take that skill set and compact it into that when you're also expected to score and stay aggressive. So that's, for me, I was like, I understand why they split it and made it work. But I wish people kind of understand that's not an easy thing to do, especially if you know you have the talent and you're in the starting lineup for a reason. You're on this team for a reason, to score. But now you have to have a better flow. And I feel like B.I. caught the brunt of it. But it's just, it's tough. Like those windows that you have, we talk about creating advantages offensively, it's a snap decision. And I felt like early on for this Team USA team, everyone was holding it and waiting until Anthony Edwards said, hey, I'll shoot.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, for me, I kind of find myself on both ends of it with Brandon Ingram in particular, because Steve, you're absolutely right. Like that's not an easy thing to do. To be a primary guy like he is, and then come on this Team USA group with a bunch of guys that he hasn't played with before and bite-size it and make an immediate impact. On the other end of it, though, in terms of, quick decision-making, willingness to take shots off the ball, off the catch, like that's never really been Brandon Ingram. I think we can all agree Brandon Ingram is a really good shooter when he's set. His willingness to do so when he gets those opportunities, it's kind of hit or miss. Like he is naturally a catch and hold type of guy. And I do think zooming out, like being able to scale up or down based on who you're playing with, like that is a skill in and of itself. And so
100% it is. Yeah, I agree.
And so with, I guess, moving past Brandon Ingram, it kind of got me into thinking about how Team USA is built, because they do like to get your Josh Harts and other guys that just kind of fit in immediately. I guess my question is, like, what exactly is the threshold for adding primary guys to a Team USA group? Like, can you only have 3 of those guys before getting into who can complement?
Right. It's a great question. I went back and I looked at a bunch of the box scores, and I watched the '08 Olympics, the Redeem team. I went back and I looked at a bunch of box scores, and look, to some extent, I think that was a different situation, right? It was the first time, we hadn't won the gold medal. Coming off the first time we hadn't won the gold medal with NBA players. That group was hungry. Kobe, was Kobe. He was a psycho. To your point about Brandon Ingram, like, I think in some ways, Coach K, talked to Kobe because Kobe was like refusing to shoot the basketball. He's like, no, we need you to be Kobe. That to me is a hard thing to do in these environments. It's like how all these guys are good. But you look back at those box scores and it's like D Wade took 3 shots against Argentina, 5 shots, something like that against Argentina. CP had a game where he took 4 shots in 27 minutes. Like, then D Wade in the gold medal game against Spain was a motherfucker. It's like Kobe was going to get 10 to 15 shots. LeBron had a game. He had 9 shots, like in a close game against a big time opponent. Like, I think there is a level of sacrifice, but it's like finding that perfect balance of still being yourself. Like, watching this morning, even Ben Caro at times, to your point about hesitancy, I was like, dude, shoot the ball. Like, what? You're just going to refuse to shoot a 15-footer. And the one complaint I would have, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. If I'm off base on this, the one complaint I have about this roster, and I think this was a very well-constructed roster. It's very different than 19 when a bunch of primary guys, A1 guys, all bailed. And then they had to put the roster together last minute. I got asked to be on the roster. I mean, that's how desperate they were. I was the 52nd ask, I'm sure. 35 years old. Why are you asking me? But the one complaint I have is I'd love to see a pick and roll partner for Brandon Ingram. I would love to see that. I would love to see more shooting. I would love to see more Cam Johnson minutes as we go on in this. That to me is where I watch the NBA and I'm watching this and I'm watching Lithuania play today. And I'm like, they're running pick and rolls, getting in rotation, swinging the basketball, and either driving to the rim or getting another open 3 for each other. And I don't think the Team USA roster is constructed to play that way. We need a rim runner. We need a vertical lob threat. And maybe those guys weren't available. But that to me is like the one. It's not just, we need guys who can rebound, outside of their space. No, it's like offensively, that's the one thing I think is missing is like, I want a pick and roll partner for Tyrese Halliburton. I don't know that Tyrese Halliburton has a great pick and roll partner on this team. And that's not a knock on JJJ. It's not a knock on Walker Kessler. It's not a knock on Paolo. But that's not really what Tyrese needs, right? What do you comment on that? Because maybe I'm off base.
Well, I'll go first, and I'll say I have felt like Team USA has had a struggle adjusting to the pick and roll windows in this World Cup, to where these teams are potentially in a drop, but also showing help, but there's also size. And it's not the same as in the NBA where, hey, if we do this, we know what the reaction is going to be. There's going to be a play somewhere. So you can count on your hands and toes how many rolls they've gotten out of pick and roll. And you can count even on just your fingers how many skips they've gotten out of pick and roll for buckets, which is generally what these guys do. They all do it every single night in the league. Those windows are different. And so if you over penetrate, you explore a beat too long, they're already getting back out. We're fine. We're good. And I feel like that's where like the hesitancy comes from. And I feel like a rim roller would help as far as being able to set a solid screen and get out of there. Nikias, what you think?
No, I'm right there with you. And as JJ brings it up, like what just kind of went off for me, like, yeah, this team really doesn't have a roller. Like, I feel like all the conversations about the bigs have been towards, like, I guess, defensive versatility to a degree and also the rebounding, since that's where it's been hammered. But, like, offensively, no. Like, Bobby Portis can post up against a switch and he can knock down some pick and pop jumpers, but he's not someone that's going to put a ton of pressure on the rim. Heading into today's game, we didn't know how much Walker Kessler would play, period, based on who he had ahead of him. And with Jaren, like something that Steve and I have talked about constantly, is like every Team USA game opens with a Jaren post-up. And it's been cool to watch his growth, dating back to the second half of last season with him in self-creation. but he's not a natural like pick and roll threat either. Like he's more pick and pop and then attack because most bigs can't stay in front of him. So it's a different dynamic. And I guess it would be cool if they had a vertical threat. My question just goes to, okay, who would be that guy, considering the guys that are already kind of sitting out? So I don't think Team USA just looked like, we don't want one of those guys. I would imagine as they got deeper down the Team USA depth chart to get a traditional role, it's like, well, okay, do we really want this guy to fill this role versus what we could get
Name
from
him,
Jaren?
Nikias. Name him.
Say it with your chest. Say it with your chest. Let's go.
Throw him. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're not here to knock anyone.